how you spend your money is how you spend your life. And when we subconsciously follow all these rules for being good with money, we are outsourcing our decision-making about our lives. It's not that these good with money rules are bad. It's just that I need you to sit down and ask yourself, is this how I want to live my life? Hey, business owners, welcome back to the Wealthy Business Owners series, where we break down what does it mean to be good with money and what does it mean to be a wealthy business owner? What are the rules for being good with money? Where did those rules come from? And how should we think about moving past them if we really want to be a wealthy business owner? This is the last episode, the last video in the series. We have covered spending, managing, saving, investing, and today we're talking about wealth building. The final hurrah in being a wealthy business owner, we're talking about wealth building. Okay, so let's start with, what does someone who's good with money think about wealth building? What do they think about wealth building? Someone who's good with money, I've noticed they have this tendency to do this thing where they want to pick the most optimized financial strategy available. So what will they do? They will run all the scenarios. They'll have all the spreadsheets with all the scenarios. They'll ask themselves, should I pay off my student loans or should I invest in the market? Should I upgrade my home or should I work on my credit card bill? Should I pay off my car or pay off my student loan, right? They're running all of these scenarios and they're doing the math to figure out what is the best mathematical option at the end of all of that. Well, what if I have another kid? Well, what if I move cities? Well, what if I burn down my business, right? They're running all of the scenarios. And then what they'll do is they'll sit with them and they'll say, okay, that looks like that's the best financial strategy. So I will go with that and commit to that. That's what someone who's good with money does. And again, I have done this. I have had the spreadsheets with all the scenarios. So I know that's what you guys are doing. I have seen my clients doing this where they're running, okay, if I pay off my student loan first, well, then I'll save this much money and then I'll have this much cash flow and then I'll move the cash flow from here to there and then I'll build that up and da 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 da. Or I have clients who are stuck, right? They're like, I don't know how to run all these scenarios. So therefore, I don't know what to pick. And I am stuck. I am absolutely paralyzed by choice with what to do because A, I don't even know what all the scenarios could possibly be. And I don't know how to run the math on them. So I'm just stuck. That's what someone who's good with money does. They run the scenarios and they pick the best mathematical answer. But a wealthy business owner takes a completely different approach. A wealthy business owner, instead of running the scenarios first, sits down with themselves and asks themselves, what kind of life do I want to live? That's a big question, right? And sometimes it's not just, okay, what kind of life do I want to live? Sit down and write the answer, right? But they really sit with themselves and ask, what kind of life do I want to live? And that can be lots of different things. What kind of place do I want to live? Do I want to be married or not? Do I want to have kids or not? Do I want to move? What kind of car do I want to drive? What kind of lifestyle do I want to have? Do I like to travel? Am I a homebody? Right? All of those things. Do I want to go back to school? Do I want to sell my business? Do I want to grow my business? There's so many ways that this question manifests. And instead of running all the scenarios and then picking the best mathematical answer, a wealthy business owner answers that question first. What kind of life do I want to live? And then they reverse engineer the best financial strategy to accomplish that goal. Here's the thing. I tell my clients this all the time. How you spend your money is how you spend your life. And when we subconsciously follow all these rules for being good with money, we are outsourcing our decision-making about our lives. We're really outsourcing our decision-making about our lives. And again, it's not that these good with money rules are bad. It's just that I need you to sit down and ask yourself, is this how I want to live my life? Money is a tool for living your life. How you spend your money is how you spend your life. So are we really going to sit here and run 20 different scenarios for what is the best mathematical outcome and then just pick that? Is best on paper really how you want to make your big life decisions? Or do you want to sit and say, what do I want? That's a kind of a scary question sometimes, right? Sometimes it's easier to run the math and just pick the best one because it gives us a little bit of distance from that decision. And you don't have to know, right? A lot of us don't know. Forget like knowing what we want this year. How are we going to know what we're going to want in 30 years? And I'm not saying you have to pigeonhole yourself into a decision, but what I am saying is just picking the best option on paper is not always the best option. I would so much rather ask, what do I want with my life? And what is the best financial model to help me get that, even if it is worse on paper than other models. And again, I have done this so many times. I have used money from my investments where I was told I shouldn't do that. I have taken money out of retirement accounts and paid the penalties. I quit my job to run a business. I moved states. Like, I've done all of these worse on paper moves, but what do they create, right? Well, what they create is a life worth living for me, a life that I'm excited about, that I'm not trying to escape from anymore. I think that for me, I can only speak from my experience on this, but for me, that's been a huge wealth building move. When I was an employee at Intuit, all I wanted to do was escape. That's how I got into the FIRE movement, financial independence, retire early. It's all about throwing as much money as you can into the stock market, saving as much of your income as you can so that you can retire early. It taught me a lot. It was a really cool movement. But at the time, that's all I thought about was retiring early, was escaping my commute. And I will say it was a hellish commute. I commuted 100 miles a day in Bay Area traffic, but that's all I could think about. I wasn't thinking about what I wanted to do after I retired. I just thought, well, I'll be retired. I'll be able to be home. I'll be able to travel. I'll just kind of putz around and have a nice life. But because I broke these wealth building rules, because I did not pick the best mathematical option on paper, I'm now out earning what I ever would have earned in corporate. When I quit my job, I was making somewhere north of $150,000 a year base, plus equity, plus bonuses, plus healthcare, plus, right? Plus 401k matching. I got $1.25 for every dollar I put in. Insane benefits, really good benefits. And I walked away from all of that. And at the time, I was only making $4,000 a month in take-home pay from my business. That is a huge demotion. Huge demotion. Anyone looking at what's the best financial strategy would have never picked that choice ever in a million years. And now, in order to earn what I earn as a take-home pay from my business, I would probably have to be a director or VP of a publicly traded company. And to be honest, that was never going to happen. That was never going to happen. I didn't have the drive, right? I just didn't have the drive to climb the corporate ladder in that way. My entire time in corporate was spent plotting on how I could retire early. And imagine if I had retired early. Imagine if I had got to the 1.5 or $2 million in my investment portfolio that I wanted so that I could retire early. I would have stayed there. I would have capped out. I would not have grown my wealth any further. I would have retired early and I would have lived off the investments and had to be frugal. If that's what you want with your life, truly, if that's what you want, I want you to have that. But I also want you to know you don't just have to follow that path because it's the best mathematical option on paper. You do not. Breaking those rules has made me wealthier than I ever would have been otherwise. Ever would have been otherwise. Really having the ability to sit down with myself and say, what does Gina want? And now I have a family, right? What does my husband want? What does my daughter want? What do we want as a family? What makes sense for us? It's a little bit like happy wife, happy life. It applies here too. Run the numbers. I'm always telling my clients to run the numbers, but also this is your life. It is really hard to grow wealth if you're unhappy. You'll just give up. I've seen that happen. I really believe that. It's really hard to be a wealthy business owner who has a thriving business, who's taking home a lot of money, who's building wealth, and who's happy when you're miserable the entire time. It's really hard to do that when you're miserable the entire time because you will give up, because the money will never be worth it. The money will never be worth it. You know how they say money can't buy happiness? First of all, I think that's bullshit, and I do not agree. I think money buys a lot of the conditions for happiness. Now, of course, we can't buy our way out of however brain chemistry we have, but money buys a lot of the conditions for happiness. But at a certain point, if you are deeply unhappy with a ton of money, you will feel the feeling that it is not worth it. I've seen a lot of wealthy people in my life who are unhappy, a lot of wealthy people, and they always sabotage it. They always blow up their marriages. They have to pay a ton in alimony. They lose the house. They blow it up because at that level, when you have all the money and none of the happiness, you know it's not worth it. To really be a wealthy business owner, you have to have the conditions where you are actively working towards something that you want. And now I want to talk about like, okay, well, what if I don't know what I want? And what if I want to change strategies? You can do that. I have changed strategies multiple times. I was just speaking to a business owner, actually. I'll tell you this because it's a really good tactical example. She was trying to figure out, do I pay off my student loans or do I build my taxable brokerage? And some context was she's thinking about having her fourth child and maybe stopping working from her business entirely. But they also have some property that could be split up into 5 different parcels and they want to develop townhomes on there, like investment real estate. And so she has like those things going on and she's trying to decide taxable brokerage or pay off my student loans. And so she's trying to do the thing where she runs the best mathematical answer and then does it. And I paused her and I said, okay, well, what are the interest rates on the student loans? They were relatively low. They're in deferment. They're federal student loans. And I said, okay, well, do you know that you want to quit your business and have your fourth kid and be a stay-at-home mom? She's like, I don't really know yet. And I said, okay, that's fine. If you put the money in the taxable brokerage, you can invest it in a relatively low risk asset allocation, meaning it doesn't have to all be in Tesla stock. I think that's insane. You can do it in a way that's lower risk, meaning there's less volatility in your money. And when you decide later, you'll have the money to execute whatever you decide. If you decide in a year, I do want to be a stay-at-home mom and have my fourth child, and the student loan payments are really going to be too much because my income's going to go down after I quit my business, then we can use the money in your taxable brokerage to pay off the student loans. It gives us a parking spot. And I call it a free option because later you can choose something different and it doesn't cost you anything. Versus if we went all in on the student loans because the interest, right? Because interest is bad. That's another one of the people who are good with money think interest is bad. Interest is bad. So let's pay off the student loans as quickly as possible. We're pigeonholing ourselves into that decision and you can't take the money back out. Versus when you park it in the taxable brokerage, it's chilling there. You can decide what to do with it later. And I told her, even if you do decide to pay off your student loans, that's fine. We're talking about 2 really good options here. You have money to do 2 amazing things. No, there's no wrong answer. But if you really don't know what you want to do yet, and you're kind of in this inflection point in your life, I would park the money and give yourself the free option later. Even if you don't know what you want your life to look like, there are strategies to park your money while you find out. You don't have to leave your money in a savings account. You can invest your money while you find out. And even if you did pay off the student loans and then went, oh, you know what? Actually, I'm not going to quit my job and I shouldn't have paid off the student loans because they were pretty low interest and I can float. Okay. We can change strategies. We can stop paying off the student loans aggressively and start building up your taxable brokerage aggressively. We can stop paying off the student loans and start building out the townhomes that you want to do, right? There's nothing wrong with pivoting. I think that's another thing a wealthy business owner does. A wealthy business owner pivots, and they pivot even if it's not the best mathematical option, or they pivot even if there's sunken costs, right? Do you know what the sunken cost fallacy is? It's this fallacy, this logical fallacy that if we invested something into something, and especially if the longer we've done that or the more money we've done that, we as humans are less likely to abandon that or pivot because we feel like we put so much into it, we can't give up now. A really good example of this is, I heard a story of a lawyer, went to law school, spent $200,000 on law school, became a lawyer, hated it, and told themselves, well, I just have to pay off my student loans and then I can quit. So they stayed for 10 years and paid off their student loans. And then they go, well, now I'm 10 years into this career. I can't quit now. I might as well just stay until retirement. And they worked an entire career they hated. Fine, I get like you want to pay off your student loans, you don't want to quit and do something cheap and financially ruin yourself. Fine, okay. But after the 10 years, they wouldn't even quit because they felt like they invested so much into it at that point, even though they knew they hated the job and they hated the life. They committed to a life that they hated because of a sunken cost. I say this to say like, it's a well-documented fallacy. A lot of people fall into it. I think wealthy business owners never fall into the sunken cost fallacy. They are willing to pivot, even if it costs them money, because they know that whatever they're pivoting to is in more alignment with the life they want to live or the financial strategy they want to have. And they don't let themselves stay with something that is no longer serving them. I'm not even going to compare that to someone who's good with money sticks with something. But I think a lot of us fall victim to the sunken cost fallacy in lots of ways. It can be like the lawyer in the career. I've seen it with life insurance policies that are pretty shitty, but people stay with them because it's like, well, it has a cash value and I've already invested so much money into it. And if I leave it now, they're going to charge me a $5,000 abandonment fee. And I'm like, pay the fee. If you know it's a bad policy and it's not actually working and you have a better financial option, pay the fee. A lot of people won't. They'll stick with something that's mathematically worse or not in alignment with their lifestyle anymore because of the sunken cost fallacy. So throughout this entire series, all of these skills built. And I really just want to leave you with, and I think I've reiterated this enough, but I really just want to leave you with the rules for what is good with money are not bad. They're not bad rules. I think they're foundational actually in a lot of cases. But if you want to be a wealthy business owner, we have to move past them. We have to learn them, and then we have to learn how to question them. We have to push past them, and it doesn't have to happen overnight. It really doesn't have to happen overnight. Do one thing at a time. I always tell my clients who are really overwhelmed, I'm like, okay, do just this one thing this week. So if after listening to this entire series, if you feel a little overwhelmed, no, I've been working on this for over a decade, right? This is a decade worth of experience and trial and error that's gone into this series. I don't expect you to like be there overnight after this series, but I do want you to start thinking a little differently. I want you to start questioning when you just have a financial decision because, well, that's what people who are good with money do. I want you to question it. And I want you to ask yourself, is this really in alignment with my goals versus just what's good with money? And I want you to start maybe tweaking one action, one decision-making framework. And if you're like, all of this is overwhelming, go back to the spending one. Remember I said in the spending one, this is the most important skill if you learn nothing else. Go back and start there. It has been my absolute pleasure recording this series. I hope it has sparked something in you. Leave a comment, send me a DM, send me an email for all I care. I would love to hear back from you and hear what resonated with you about this series. Did something blow your mind? Did something change how you think? And just would love to see what you decide to do with this and how you decide to move forward.